David Micwork commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Hello, wonderful persons. What is going on? Happy Saturday and welcome back to the Winged Eagle Podcast, or your Winged Eagle Podcast for September 21st, 2024. This is going to be a pretty news-heavy podcast today, guys. We have a ton of news to get into, lots of contract stuff, and of course, it wouldn't be a Saturday Wingy without a ton of AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery media rights deal discussion. We have some details on that deal, which is pretty much done now, and some late-breaking news on a pay-per-view streaming deal as well with AEW and Max that we'll get into. But we have news on the Lucha Brothers today. We have news on Miro, Kevin Owens, Dustin Rhodes, Tony Khan, Sheamus. Like I said, the media rights deal negotiations going on right now in AEW. Along with some interesting news coming out of WWE, with SmackDown potentially moving to 3 hours. NXT is about to head over to the CW. We have some news on WWE streaming on Peacock as well, along with Ken Shamrock signing a Legends deal. We have some more news on Vince McMahon and Janelle Grant. And we have to get into last night's SmackDown, which we saw a spectacular cinematic segment between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns right on the 50-yard line of Georgia Tech University, in a state and city where both men have a ton of history. And last night's SmackDown was, a pretty decent show as well. We'll also touch on Dynamite, although I'm not going to review the show because I didn't really watch the show this week. Only saw about half of it, but I want to preview Grand Slam coming up this week, which we will be here live together watching. We have Collision coming up tonight, and we'll get into some random results and some bad blood stuff, some Grand Slam stuff, and anything else you guys might want to discuss in the chat today. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much what's going to be on our menu. Before I do some shout outs and say hello to everyone, I also want to let you know about a couple of scheduling issues here on the channel, and I have some sad news to report. Most of you know this, those of you who were here with us last night. We were here last night doing an impromptu SmackDown live reaction because I had scored a last-minute Friday night off, and I found out that tomorrow night I am needed at an off-site booking for work. And I already had a Bad Blood 2003 classic watch-along scheduled for tomorrow night that I had to cancel. So I'm sorry about that. To make up for it, we came up here last night to watch SmackDown. We will be here again on Monday night watching Raw. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to be up here to do a live watch-along for Grand Slam. So I'm trying to make it up to you, trying to make tomorrow up to you by giving you guys a watch-along last night and one on Wednesday. And unfortunately, the week after tomorrow, the 29th, September 29th, there also will be no classic watch along because I'm also booked for another event through work. So unfortunately, it's very rare for me to have to work Sundays, especially 2 in a row. So I apologize for that. I will find ways to make that up to you guys. And I'm about to schedule some more Saturday night's main event watch alongs for the members. So just keep a lookout for that. Sorry about no classic watch alongs tomorrow or next Sunday, but we will pick things back up the night after Bad Blood this year on October 6th. 2 Sundays from now, we'll be back with another classic, and maybe I'll just do the Bad Blood 2003 watch-along that I had planned. That's probably what we'll do on October 6th. So I'm sorry about the delay there, but you guys will get a lot of me this week because also on Wednesday, the day of Grand Slam, where we'll be here watching that together, that's also the day of the Vince McMahon docuseries release on Netflix. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to see any of it before Dynamite airs, but after Dynamite, Elizabeth and I are probably going to bust out that entire series. So I'll try to have a review up to you guys on the Vince doc, hopefully within a week after it airs, but it's going to take me some time to kind of re-go through all those episodes, make some notes, and give you guys a real, actual good podcast review on that. But that will also be coming to the channel very soon, probably right around the beginning of October is probably when I'll find the time to finally get that done. So a lot going on today, a lot to discuss, and a lot coming up this week on the channel. So thank you for being here. Welcome. Also, subscribe, like button, smash it. All that good stuff, you know what to do. And if you are in the chat, please let me know if you have any questions. Super chats are open. They will all be answered today. Memberships are open as well. And like I said, you guys do have some member content coming to you very, very soon. I have a few YouTube shorts already in the can as well. So I'm trying to pump out the content here as best I can, guys. So I appreciate you guys always being here, subscribing, being loyal, and staying tuned. I appreciate it. I want to say hello to everyone who's here in the chat so far. It's good to see Rodrigo and Gilbert and Red Raven Rucker. We got channel members Tatanani, Big J, Ronnie, my boy, is here. Isaac, Sonic Plays, William, and Luke McAllister, another channel member, chiming in with an early 10 for us. Thank you so much for that super chat, my friend. Hey, Greg, after that segment, do you think Cody and Roman define this era of wrestling in WWE similar to Hogan and Savage of the 80s, or Rock and Austin of the Attitude Era, or even Cena and Orton of the 2000s? Yes and no. I don't think, with Hogan was so crucial to the 80s. Without Hogan, you take Hogan away out of that equation in the mid 80s, you're going to struggle. Where, we've seen WWE runs just fine without Roman Reigns, and Cody Rhodes just got to the company 2 years ago. So, maybe a little bit of that, yes. But then again, I'm not sure if I would make, a direct comparison, put them necessarily on the same level, because what Hogan and Austin had in common is that they were both very crucial and basically carried the companies on their back. And you could argue that without those guys, WWE wouldn't have survived. Where that's not the case with Cody and Roman. As important as Cody and Roman are to the company, they could both disappear tomorrow, and that machine would just keep on running. Wouldn't matter. So it kind of depends on how you look at it. But Austin, when Brett left and the screw job, and, WCW just putting the screws to WWE, and it looked like it was all but over, in rides Stone Cold Steve Austin out of nowhere to save us all. And Hulk Hogan, kind of the same thing. WWE wasn't, shit in the bed or anything in the early 80s, but Vince McMahon did buy the company from his dad, and a lot was riding on that company being a bigger success than it was. So him bringing in Hogan from the AWA and getting that train moving, without that wouldn't have been able to happen. In the Attitude Era, you argue without Austin, there might not have been time for Rock to get going, and become a big star, for him to carry the ship. They might have been dead by then. So I'm not sure if I would make that an equal comparison, but it's definitely, you always look at like the two best, Cena and Orton, Brett and Shawn are another one, Hogan and Savage, Hogan and Warrior, and, Cody and Roman. And before then, it was even kind of like Roman and Cena, right? So we've always had our two guys on top, it seems, and I think it's a fair enough comparison. Good to see William Cullen and Yuri Lover and Mr. Lover. And we've got Jose Lopez in here as well. James Kowalski, good to see you. And channel member Zach, always happy to see you here as well. Well, right on. Pretty easy shout outs for today. Rodrigo, got no Ricky Starks update yet. We got a lot of updates, but nothing involving Ricky Starks, at least this week. Not that there's not information out there, but we don't have really any new information on Ricky Starks. And based on how tight-lipped everything has been in that regard, I kind of have a feeling we're not going to really know any new updates until we get either a contract being officially over, which I think it might already be, we don't even know that, or if he just signs. And I think WWE, if they plan on signing him, which I'm sure they do, I would like, since it's been so much time now and we don't really, you're always thinking about Ricky, but you don't really know what the latest with him is, I would take advantage of that and try to quietly sign him as best as I could. If AEW finds out, they might try to leak it or whatever, but I might try to quietly sign Ricky Starks to a deal, and then just boom, out of nowhere, he's just there on NXT unannounced. That would be fun. That would get a huge buzz. And I don't know the update or on his contract, and I don't know the status of when it ends officially or if it has already ended. But if he, for argument's sake, hypothetically was available right now, I would try to sign him and debut him on that October 8th or October 1st. October 1st is the date of the CW move, right? So if we see him there, that would be a good spot to debut, I believe. John Donzo, when will the Lucha Brothers debut? Well, we're about to talk about that. And that's going to be my top story here today. We're going to talk about the Lucha Brothers. Reportedly had signed with WWE, but there was another report that came out today that said not so fast. Now, there was a report earlier this week that Lucha Brothers had signed a contract with WWE and that merchandise was going to be a big part of their deal. And that got a lot of people talking and wondering and speculating as to why AEW never made any merch for these guys. I mean, they might have had a shirt or something, but like, especially those masks, the fact that they could have marketed and produced those masks and sold them on their website and made bukus of money off that, and it never really came up, or we never really saw that from them, is pretty surprising. That's a huge, creative oversight that, if you got or merchandising oversight, excuse me, if you got your, your marketing people in there, your merch people in there, how come they're not like, hey, let's make some Penta and Rey Fenix masks, because they will sell. If they're going to WWE, you can bet they're going to have the toys, the masks, all that shit, and that was probably very attractive for them to go there. Now, it was reported that the deal is already done. Fightful Select had a report on this just today, with some information that has emerged on them not actually signing. So here's what Fightful Select said earlier on today, and I quote, "This week, reports emerged that the Lucha Brothers, Penta and Phoenix, had signed with WWE on multi-year deals. While it is expected that WWE is the ultimate destination, a number of WWE sources confirmed to Fightful that the two aren't signed yet. One even indicated that they believe Rey Fenix is technically still under contract with AEW and that the transition to WWE won't be as smooth as expected. AEW sources have not confirmed Phoenix's contract status either. Both wrestlers remain on AEW's official roster page. When we've asked AEW and WWE in official capacity on the status of either talent, we've not gained an answer." So apparently, maybe the deal isn't quite done yet. There was also a report earlier this week as well that Tony Khan opted to not extend or not add time to Rey Fenix's contract due to injury because he wanted to leave. Now, Penta has been pretty vocal all summer, even saying that he's been talking to WWE, and when he goes there, him and his brother are a package deal, and that they're going to go straight to the main roster. That was his belief, or some of the things that he was saying this summer. So the report this week that Tony Khan, didn't bother adding time to Phoenix's contract since he doesn't plan on sticking around anyway. We don't really know the validity of that or not. According to the Fightful Select report, they haven't signed with WWE, and their contracts are still probably in place in AEW, because otherwise I don't know why they would still be on the roster page. So to me, it sounds like when you read all these, various reports, what it sounds like is the Lucha Brothers very much are heading to WWE. I believe that's probably still going to happen, but they're just waiting until contracts are officially up, deals can officially be inked, and debuts can be made. But it all sounds like, much like the Warner Brothers and AEW media rights deal, it's like it's done, but it's not done type of thing. And that's kind of what I took away from all of this. But if these reports are true about the Luchas signing with WWE and going straight to the main roster, and with a tag team, I'd be fine with that. They would be great there. Got to get used to that WWE style. That's why I don't think passing through NXT would be the worst thing in the world for them. But if part of their deal, if they're just insistent, no, we are a good enough team, well-seasoned, well-traveled, well-experienced, we belong on your main roster, and we're not coming here unless you put us there. Those are the type of things that nowadays you can probably start negotiating now that there are two companies. And that's what's so great about having two companies, is that neither company can fucking handcuff you. Neither company can make you sign your life away. If they're not going to give you exactly what you want, you got an option to go somewhere else. And that's nothing but good for the business and healthy. So with the Lucha Bros, they had a great run in AEW. It was fun to see them there, but going to WWE is going to be something that I think also is going to be fun. And if you've got the Lucha Brothers coming in, and you've got Motor City Machine Guns, but set to debut any day now, although reports are they're going to be in NXT, those are two legendary teams, huge teams to add to your tag team division. Now you got two sets of tag team titles, so you need good teams. Throw Lucha Brothers on one, Machine Guns on the other, and really help beef up those tag team divisions. I'm excited to see Lucha Brothers go to WWE. I'm excited to see anybody jump. I love jumps. I always have. Back in the day, I really, except for Randy Savage and Bret Hart, those ripped my heart out, and I'm still bleeding from those. Other than those, though, it really didn't matter to me back in the day which way they were going. Even though I was sad to see Hall and Nash, Diesel, and Razor Ramon leave WWE, it was cool as hell seeing them form the NWO in WCW. So today it's the same thing. AEW, WWE, I don't care which way the talent's going. They're going from WWE to AEW or vice versa. I just like to see it happen. So Lucha's going to WWE. I'm excited to see it when that actually happens. But given the fact that there's probably still a little bit of time left on Rey Fenix's contract, and then, getting the deal done with WWE and then getting them ready to debut, we could still be looking at a couple of months before we see these guys in WWE, possibly even the beginning of the year. So we'll monitor that and find out and keep an eye on when exactly we will see the Lucha Bros in WWE. And I've always believed that Rey Fenix has excellent option as a singles. I mean, they both do. I mean, they remind me a lot of the Hardys. I think, Lucha Brothers on their own, Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix, individually, if they were singles, they remind me a lot of the Hardys. I feel like Phoenix would be more of a Jeff Hardy. Penta would be more of a Matt Hardy. Both successful, maybe Phoenix a little more flashy, maybe ultimately a little bit more successful, but still both perfectly capable of working in teams or singles. So excited to see their future and wish them nothing but the best. A lot of contract stuff. That's kind of, if you can't tell, that's what we're opening up here with today. We have some news on Miro as well. Now, I have really, really missed Miro. We all have. We haven't seen him wrestle in a long time. I think the last time he was on TV was against that meaty match versus Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs. All the best to Hobbs, too. He's also on the shelf. But Miro, it just seems like almost from the moment he got there, shit was going wrong. He started out a little wonky, but then got his act together with that Redeemer, which was great. Won the TNT title, once or twice? At least once. And having that character in AEW made us realize what WWE was doing wrong with Rusev, made us realize, what a hilarious dude this guy really is. I've always felt that Miro has got charisma, he's quick-witted, he's got fun comedic timing, and he's kind of a funny guy, but can also be a monster ass kicker as well. And I loved what he was doing as that Redeemer character, but for whatever reason, they have not been able to creatively get on the same page. Miro and AEW, Miro and Tony Khan, whoever it is, whatever's going on, creatively, it's been very difficult to get anything done here. Now, this could be one of the downsides to Tony Khan signing guys to contracts and letting them have a lot of creative say. I think there needs to be a balance. You can't just force talent to go out there and do whatever. They should be able to offer offer criticism or, be able to speak up if they have an issue with something. I believe all of that. But being able just to flat out refuse stuff and sit at home, we don't really know. There's been a lot of reports that that's what Miro is doing, that things have been pitched to him and he's been refusing them. We are not there. I'm not backstage in AEW, neither are you guys. So we really don't know for sure. But with Miro, signing that extension, I think 2 years ago, he's still got time left on his deal. So it's not like his deal is coming up and Tony Khan knows that he's leaving and he's just not going to use him, kind of like Ricky Starks and like we've seen in some other instances. But Miro has been off TV now for so long. In the last 2 years, how often have we seen Miro on TV? I don't even know what the timeline is of when he was TNT champion. It seems like a lifetime ago. And apparently, he has now officially asked for his release. I believe that he's already kind of asked for it once before, I thought, but then again, he did sign that extension, so he's locked up for a long time. Sounds like he doesn't really want to be there. He would love to go back to WWE, but Tony Khan has been kind of known for making you live up to your contracts. If he knows you're leaving, he's making everybody stay and work out their deals, and that's been his philosophy for the most part. Now, he's made some exceptions. He let William Regal go with some conditions. Sounds like he might have made, an exception with Rey Fenix as well. And I think it just depends on, who you are as a talent, how much trouble you've been, how good you've been. And Rey Fenix, we've heard nothing but great things about him. Somebody who always steps up, always comes through, causes no problems backstage, doesn't balk or push back on anything. Total cooperative worker. So in that regard, in that case, if Tony Khan is treating these situations in a case-by-case basis, Phoenix is a guy I'm going to let go. Miro, who's been a complete uncooperative pain in the ass, I'm not going to let him just go right back to WWE and then go on their TV show and cut a promo on me. That type of thing. So you got to think of it from his perspective too, to where I don't think it's just black and white. Anybody who asks for a release should get it. Yes, I think anybody who's been benched like Miro or anybody who's not being used or not being on TV who wants a release, I think both companies should absolutely grant them anytime they are asked for, because we gave WWE a lot of shit for some of the talent that they were holding hostage, specifically Luke Harper, and how they jerked him around for so long. Mustafa Ali is another good example of why don't you just let them go? What is the big deal? Look at your company. Your company is enormous. Your company isn't going to suffer at all losing one of these guys. But yet you keep them around for what? They're just getting older. You got a window of opportunity to do this as a job. And if you're Luke Harper, who now is approaching 40 years old and he's just burning years off in WWE and catering, that's frustrating. And with Tony Khan, I don't want to see him do that either, but with Miro, if part of his, we're not saying it is, but if part of his situation is that he just doesn't want to do anything that's offered, like Tony Khan is offering him creative stuff to do. Come to Dynamite. We want to put you on TV. I want to have you in this match. And Miro's like, that doesn't work for me, brother. And then he asks for his release. Well, sorry, I got no sympathy for you if you're stuck there. They want you on TV. If you don't like what they're doing, then, you're the one that signed the contract. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going on here. I'm just saying if that's the situation, then I don't really care if Tony Khan grants Miro a release or not. But if it's more of a mutual thing, if both sides have made mistakes, and Miro's been a little bit uncooperative, but at the same time, AEW's been offering him and pitching him nothing but dog shit, then yeah, you can kind of understand both sides of it then. So at the end of the day, it sounds like Miro was not happy. And as a wrestling fan, we should look at things more from the perspective of what we would like to see as a wrestling fan. Miro was sitting on a ton of money. He's made a lot of money. His livelihood is in no danger here. This is about Miro's professional wrestling career. And if he's not being used on AEW and he's never going to be used again until his contract is up, then yeah, I think him jumping to WWE and becoming Rusev the Redeemer would be fucking awesome. If he brought that Redeemer character to WWE, because if he were to, for argument's sake, hypothetically, Tony Khan says, fine, cuts him loose, you're released. No conditions, no compete, nothing. You're released. Jumps to WWE. I don't think he has to really tweak much about who he was in AEW. I don't know if he's going to come in as Miro. He's probably going to have to go back to being Rusev. But if he was like Rusev the Redeemer, something like that, and he was that Redeemer character that he did so well in AEW, you bring that to WWE, you get that character rolling, and then you collision course him with Gunther. I mean, that is some shit right there. That would be great stuff. So, from that perspective, from a fan's perspective, somebody who enjoys Miro as a performer and as a wrestler, I'd love to see him in AEW, but unfortunately, he's not there. They're not using him. So if that's the case, send him back to WWE because I can think of 100 great things for him to do there, especially now that Vince McMahon is gone and Triple H might utilize him a lot better than he was last time. Now, in terms of the whole Miro situation, here is what Fightful Select had to say about this situation earlier this week. By the way, go subscribe to Fightful Select. Link is in the description. $5 a month, all the great news, wrestling news you could ask for. And here is what they reported on Miro earlier on this week. And I quote, Miro hasn't wrestled for AEW at all in 2024. Okay, so they're answering my question. I just asked you guys when the last time he wrestled, and apparently it was World's End 2023. Holy shit. So we're looking at 9 full months of no Miro. Crazy. We're told that Miro was sidelined longer than AEW expected after that match, but has been healthy for quite some time. There was some consideration internally to use him in the AEW All-In Casino Gauntlet, and he had pitched working with Jon Moxley earlier this year. Miro and AEW were unable to get on the same page creatively, something that became somewhat common for the two sides over recent years. We've not learned if Miro was granted his release or if there's interest from WWE. Miro is earning into 7 figures annually. So Tony Khan is paying him over $1 million a year. I'm sorry. I don't really give a shit if you're not creatively satisfied making 7 figures a year. Dude, just go out there and to do a job. What the fuck? You're a millionaire. What the fuck's the difference? Anyway, it goes on to say that Miro had signed a contract upon joining AEW in September of 2020 that was set to expire in spring of 2022. However, he signed a 4-year extension around that time that could still have him with AEW until spring of 2026. So he's looking at nearly 2 years left. Probably 1 year and 9 months-ish left on his current deal, and he wants out. But then again, he signed an extension. He signed an extension of spring of 2022, reportedly for 7 figures. And whatever the case may be, creatively, he wasn't satisfied with what they are pitching for him, and I guess he reserves the right to deny that. I mean, if you're getting paid 7 figures and that's guaranteed, so then they can just be like, hey, we want you to come and do this. And you're like, no, I'll just sit at home and collect my money. You can do that? I don't know. Apparently you can do that. So he's being paid an insane amount of money. So I don't know why it would be so hard for him to show up and just lose a fake fight. I don't know. So I think if I were to take like an educated guess on this, like I said earlier, I feel like there's probably a little bit of blame to go around on both sides. Miro does not seem like the most cooperative person. I saw a little clip of him today where he was sitting on his little Twitch stream or whatever the hell it is, and he's talking about Meltzer, and he's like, Meltzer, you know, he's going to burn in hell, that guy. He's charged these people all this money just to spew lies, lies, lies. You know, when he dies, he's going to burn in hell. I'm like, is it just me, or is that just a little bit dramatic? I don't know what it is with so much of, the community. You don't really see it from wrestlers. You know, there's been all this fightful drama and stuff this week. And, you know, the people that spew hate against those publications or journalists it's a very narrow demographic. It's never wrestlers. You never see Cody Rhodes or any of these other people that, you know, Fightful has good relationships with, constant interviews, things like that. They talk to everybody. You never hear wrestlers going on a slobbering, drooling 20-minute tirade about how they're not real journalists. You never hear that. And you don't hear it from girls either. It's one very specific demo. It's angry man children and douchebag podcasters. That's it. Nobody else. They are the MAGA of the wrestling community, the IWC. They are mad, they are jealous, they are slobbering, drooling, raging, and pretending to give a shit about journalistic integrity. They don't. They care about spewing hate, they care about piling on, and they care about being a part of that echo chamber of douchebags. And it's rare to see a wrestler come out and attack someone. And for Miro to say that Meltzer is going to burn in hell, I know Meltzer has his problems. We've been grain of salting Meltzer for years. You have to understand, how many times have I said that? I like Dave. I always have. You have to understand that you're reading Dave. He's not forcing you to pay this money. You don't have to subscribe to him. I don't. You know, every report that I read from Meltzer, I take it with a grain of salt. It doesn't piss me off. I don't get mad. He's just making things up. Let him. You have a choice whether or not to read him. It's a choice. Don't read his shit if you don't like what he's printing. And also, we know who Dave is. We know how he editorializes. We know how he just kind of watches the same things we do and comes to his own conclusions, but he just puts his conclusions in print. Much like the entire fucking IWC does. Every damn thought that comes out in their head, they have to throw it out there on Twitter. You know, so Dave has got you got the title of a journalist attached to him. So, you know, you're attacking him, and it's wrestling news. You know, we're not talking about CNN and fucking Fox and shit here. You know, we're talking about wrestling news, wrestling websites. Somebody might be staying, somebody might be going, somebody might be re-signing their contract, somebody might be jumping ship. Why this sparks any sort of outrage at all in any fans really, really blows my mind, and I don't understand it. So for Miro to lean into this and say that Dave Meltzer should burn in hell, you know, now granted, if wrestlers come out angry at a journalist or a website or something because of something that's written about them that's untrue, I can completely understand that. That is bullshit. That's a completely made up lie. They are the ones that would really have the right to speak up and be loud and angry if they are reading something that they know 1,000,000,000% is untrue. And this publication made it up, but you don't see that. Show me the wrestlers, you know, with 170 consecutive tweets yelling at Fightful. They don't exist. It's douchebag man-children. That's it. And maybe Miro, who suggests that Dave Meltzer, because he writes wrestling news that tends to sometimes not be true, that he deserves to burn in hell? Miro, I hate to break it to you. Hell is not real. There is not a burning pit in the center of the earth run by a demon in a red bodysuit holding a pitchfork. It's made up. It's as made up as everything you claim Meltzer is making up. So, pot, meet kettle. Speaking of contracts, Kevin Owens' contract is also reportedly up. Our friends at Fightful Select had another write-up on this today, and I quote, this week, and I quote, WWE is trying to get ahead on some upcoming contracts expiring. Fightful Select confirmed a PW Insider report this week that WWE had approached a number of talents about re-signing ahead of their deals expiring. That's smart considering how much money Tony Khan's willing to fan out, if you know what I mean. This message is a far cry from what we've seen throughout a good part of the year. In one case, Damian Priest's deal was set to expire right around the same time he renewed. Specifically, WWE sources tell Fightful that Kevin Owens has been approached for a new contract. We're told that Owens has not signed a new deal as of yet, but communication has been made. His contract is expected to be up at the end of the year. Those we spoke to in AEW said that the company has long had major interest in bringing in Owens when and if he's available. They're expecting to make an offer if he reaches free agency. So the way this reads to me is Kevin Owens' contract is coming up. WWE, we know they're butthurt about AEW signing Swerve to a huge deal. They're mad. I don't know if the market can bear that. I'm like, shut up. You guys are getting billions from NBC Universal. Suck on my bowels with that. Just pay more. So in my mind, I kind of like that. Like I said, there's a balance. There's a balance between having like an out of control ATM where you're just giving guys too much money and they stop caring. That used to be the deal back in the early 90s with those lazy ass fucking legends. I don't think that's really the mentality in today's modern wrestling. But if that's the one thing, that you can compete with WWE on, hey, I can outbid them. I can outbid them. And I love that they're getting mad because it's like unfair. Hey, it's unfair. I'm like, look who's talking. Look at all the things you've done. Look at how they've tried to step on the throats of so many different promotions and stunt their growth and do little shady shit tactics that they've been doing ever since the 1980s. The Starrcade and WrestleMania stuff. They've always kind of had that mentality is to really try to stick it to their competitor. And we know how big WWE is. They are firm number one. AEW is a distant number two, but they are still a number two. And they do compete with WWE on production, on pay-per-view, quality, things like that. Where they don't compete with WWE on is overall revenue, TV rights deals, attendance, and ratings. But talent-wise, they have, you can make your own assumptions who's got the better talent roster. I'd probably give the nod to WWE too, to be honest, but they're not lopsided. The talent rosters are not as lopsided as the attendance and ratings. And so Tony Khan knows that he technically has enough money to outbid any deal in WWE. And he's an impulsive guy. He's a guy that doesn't like WWE tampering with their contracts. He's the type of guy that might make an impulse decision. Oh yeah, I'm going to show these motherfuckers. When this guy's contract is up, I'm going to offer him 10 times more than WWE just to take him away. This is the type of guy that I feel like could do this, Tony Khan, who could get mad enough to be like, oh yeah, bitches. Oh yeah, here we go. Hey, Kevin Owens, what about $20 million a year? How does that sound? 5-year deal. Come on, just to take him away. So you never know. I think that WWE knows that they are seeing the type of money that AEW is paying out. And now that WWE is under the TKO umbrella, they just might not have the flexibility just to say, okay, we're going to match anything. It's going to probably be a case-by-case basis in WWE business-wise because they have so many stockholders and shareholders, and this money cuts into their bottom line, might have a cap on what they're willing to pay certain talents. So there might be a limit to what WWE is willing to pay Kevin Owens. We cannot pay him $1 more than this. Tony Khan could just be coming in and be like, I'll pay you $1 million more than that. I'll pay you $1 million more than that. So I feel like WWE approaching their talent early and trying to get them to re-sign before their deal is up prevents them, in theory anyway, from negotiating with the competition. Now, Kevin Owens is big friends with the Young Bucks. He's got a lot of friends in AEW. I'm sure that through certain channels and feelers, he could get a general idea of what AEW is going to offer him. I mean, he has Matt and Nick Jackson's cell phone numbers. They're friends. Just text them. Talk to TK. Ask him what he'd offer me. And then they do. And he texts it back. They said, I'll give you $5 million a year. Or they might say, Kevin, TK said that whenever your contract is up and whatever WWE offers you, he will double it. Or whatever. I mean, at least if I'm Kevin Owens, there's tampering laws, but there's no law against texting your friends, So I think with Owens, I would at least see what AEW has to say. But Owens is also one of those talents that I just try to think about their career and where I'd like to see them in the ring. And even though Owens coming to AEW would be remarkably cool if he did, and I think it's absolutely crazy that he has not held World Championship gold in 8 years since 2016 or when he dropped it in 2017. And even though I think that's criminal, I kind of think that he should stick around. I think that if he were to re-sign with WWE, I feel like Triple H will not let this man retire without winning another world championship. You know, I just feel like he won't. And hopefully I just said that I like when people jump ship, so seeing him in AEW would be great. But I feel like Owens and his legacy, his overall legacy, even though if he got to be Kevin Steen again, that would all be tremendous. You know, he's going to be going somewhere with, you know, that owns the entire Ring of Honor library. They got a lot of footage of Owens or Steen in Ring of Honor that Tony Khan can use and utilize and use to, you know, help tell stories about his past and whatnot. So he's got things to do over there 100%. But I also like Kevin Owens a lot, and I feel like, you know, him finishing up his career in WWE would be very fitting. He's there with Sami Zayn, you know, and Owens isn't exactly young either. He's got to be pushing 40 if he's not there already. So it just depends on what he wants to do. If he realizes, hey, I only got 5 years left in the ring, I want to go get paid and just make sure I can really, really just set myself for life, even though he probably already is. He could go get one more huge payday from AEW, work 3 years, maybe come back to WWE for one more 3-year deal and retire. So it just kind of depends. Everybody's got different aspirations. Every talent is different. Some talents might have, you know, financial attraction. Others might say, oh, I can do have more exposure in WWE. Oh, I can be more creatively happy in AEW. There's lots of things to kind of balance and weigh if you're a talent, and we're not in their shoes. But I feel like Owens will probably stay. That's my instinct. My gut instinct says Owens will stay in WWE, and we'll keep our eye on that situation. We're also going to keep our eye on Dustin Rhodes. Now, Dustin, brother of Cody Rhodes, his contract is coming up as well pretty soon, and he currently holds 2 championships in AEW, correct? And here's another report from Fightful on Dustin Rhodes, and I quote, last year, Fightful Select reported that Rhodes' AEW contract runs through September 2024. With him winning numerous championships in Ring of Honor, many had assumed that had changed. However, as of AEW All Out, we confirmed that his deal with the company is still up in the fall. So Dustin's contract is now coming up. I'm not too worried about the championship belts. I feel like if Dustin is going to leave and head back to WWE to join his brother or sign a Legends deal over there or something, he will do all the proper business on his way out the door. But Dustin is also a guy that really seems to enjoy himself in AEW. You know, Dustin coming back to WWE, I don't think it would be to be a full-time wrestler. It might just be there to be in the background, be involved in some Cody Rhodes storylines. That would be really fun. A lot of us were hoping that Dustin would be at WrestleMania this year in some capacity. He was not. He seems like he's not a Ricky Starks or a Miro who's just waiting, or a Malachi Black who's just waiting to get out of there. You know, he feels like he enjoys his time there. He's helpful to the young talent. I think the women's wrestlers really appreciate his input. And I think he can kind of act as, you know, kind of a mentor coach type of personality there. So even though Cody is in WWE doing great things, even though his brother went to WWE, became the biggest star in the company, and main evented 2 straight WrestleManias, I feel like it's not a given. It's not an absolute that Dustin will leave AEW and go to WWE. I think he could maybe potentially stick around there. So we will see. If he starts dropping those titles in rapid succession, that's going to be your indicator right there that he is heading to WWE. So in the case of Rhodes, you know, in the case of Lucha Bros, I'm excited to see them make the jump. I think that's great for them. With Miro, I'm kind of on the fence. Just depends on who's really at fault there. If he's being a stubborn asshole, you know, I don't really have any sympathy for him. With Kevin Owens, I feel like he should stay in WWE. And with Dustin Rhodes, I could go either way on that. If he wanted to re-up with AEW, continue having the role there that he has, wrestling occasionally, being a mentor, you know, and perhaps, you know, a backstage presence there, or maybe even a front office job in AEW, that would be great. But if he were to come back to the WWE and come back into that umbrella that basically celebrates your father's legacy, you know, all that Rhodes history, that could be very attractive as well, especially to someone Dustin Rhodes' age. So I don't feel like, you know, I feel like Dustin Rhodes could actually be one of the few people that could work both companies, but that'll never happen. Both companies are going to want all of their talent, no matter what, to be exclusive. So, you know, unless there's a working agreement like NXT and TNA. So, wherever Dustin lands, it's going to be where he's going to have to stay. So that's on him. We don't really know. Dustin might know full well what his plans are. He might be in full communication with Tony Khan. Yeah, we'll get a deal done. I'll resign. I plan on sticking around. I'm not going anywhere. So they haven't really, worried about, figuring out the title belts or anything like that. Tony is kind of feeling like he's going to stick around. We don't know. But the fact that he's holding 2 championships there makes me think that we're not going to see him on SmackDown next week or anything like that. But we will monitor the Dustin Rhodes situation. Now, Sheamus has also re-upped with the company. That makes me happy. Sheamus has re-signed with WWE, and originally his contract was set to be up earlier this year, but was extended due to injury time, and his new deal is multi-year in length. Didn't really see Sheamus, going to AEW, especially now that, again, he's somebody that's in his 40s, right? I think he's 42, 43, 44, something like that. Still looks amazing, but this has got to be his last full-time deal, I would think. It's crazy how old wrestlers are getting now, like how long into their lives wrestlers are in the ring. Back in the 90s, it was a big deal to call someone who's 42 years old a dinosaur. I remember when Jake Roberts came back in 1996, they were acting like he was 90. He was 41. He was 6 years younger than I am right now. And they're acting like he is way too old to even think about competing. Now, a lot of times you don't even win your first championship till you're almost 40 years old. So it's crazy. So we are happy for Sheamus. Congrats. He'll be sticking around, and Sheamus has always been one of my favorites. All right, so that's pretty much it for the contract news. Before we get into our next big story, I'm going to cruise to the chat and just knock out a couple of these pleasantries. Wow, Sheamus is 46 years old, so he's a year younger than me. Damn, that is old, old, old. I want to knock out a couple of quick supers here. I got one from Mike Witt. Thanks, man. Hey, Greg and chat. Probably not soon, but that segment with Cody Rhodes and Roman last night made me think Cody could be an awesome cocky heel someday. Oh, he absolutely will. I really hope, as much as I love Cody in this role, he can't be John Cena forever. He cannot be this for 12 years. He's got to turn heel, and he will. I feel confident that he will. This is Triple H, not Vince McMahon. And I don't think they're going to have that same fear of, we're going to lose the merch and the kids who look up to him and all that shit. I'm hoping that those same mistakes won't be made again, because that's how you get stale. And before you know it, you're going to have babyface Cody Rhodes coming out getting booed by everybody. And I just don't think Triple H is that stupid. So when things start to turn, when Cody starts venturing into stale territory, which I don't believe he's even close to that yet, as a babyface, then you make the move. And you can see it. You can see that it's there. We saw it in AEW. It's there, and it'll come. I'm looking forward to it too, man. Mike Witt, 2 more. I want Malachi Black back in WWE someday too. I do too. His woman's there. Let me see. Spectra, good to see you, man. 25 months sounds like a while, but I remember watching you for a long time. I don't see a video on your channel anymore, but I distinctly remember you talking about the pipe bomb. Happy Saturday, brother. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah. I don't know when that would have been, but thank you so much for that, Spectra. It's good to see everybody else in here, too. Superman, Bass Fisher, Delayed Gratz, Stephen Harris, Transferring Heat. Barry MK's in the house. We got Hassan Terrell. Max Pokebra is here, I see, as well. Ben Espinoza, Steve McDonald, Rob Strickland. Always good to see Swerve's brother here. Anybody else chiming in? Welcome. Thanks for being here on this Saturday afternoon. All right. Next order of business. We got a lot of news on, of course. I purposely didn't open with this today because you guys have been so patient. Every damn Saturday, we're up here for a wingy. The first thing we got to talk about is the latest on the AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery media rights deal and all that bullshit. Well, I'm happy to say that these discussions are almost over. Now, even though technically we do not have an official announcement on the deal is done. There is no concern for this falling through or not getting done. Dynamite and Collision is going to remain on TBS and TNT. And we have some details on what the specifics of that deal will likely be. We also have an update on those specifics, and we have a late breaking update from Andrew Zarian today from via the Mat Men podcast on the AEW pay-per-views potentially moving to streaming. So we got a lot of info to get into. So the first order of business here is to talk about AEW's new deal with Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, it's been a couple of weeks now that it's been widely understood that this deal is pretty much done. We just have not got an official announcement. Now, here's a tweet from Brandon Thurston just the other day, and I quote, John Orrond at Puck reports AEW's new media deal with Warner Brothers Discovery will be a 4-year deal, 3 years guaranteed with a 1-year option for $170 million per year is apparently the ballpark. So that is pretty damn close to what I think they wanted. If you think back to CM Punk coming back to Collision when he returned. Remember what he said, that one bill fill? Well, that one bill fill, that $1 billion number came from AEW expecting to get $200 million per year in a 5-year deal. That's what they were kind of hoping for, expecting, and that's when Punk said that he's one bill fill. So they're not quite one bill AEW, and it's not a 5-year deal. It's a 3-year deal with a 1-year option, but that is still a huge increase. It's over double what they were already getting, and that should make them very, very happy. Now, that deal is just for the TV. Here's what Fightful Select said about this week. Contacts we've spoke to close to the situation claim that this information does reflect the truth and the deal is being closed in on. We do not have a date in which the deal will be announced. Sources we've spoken to at AEW say that things have been tight-lipped about the future of the deal and that talent has not been privy to the details of AEW's TV future or the future of pay-per-views. However, several on both sides that we've spoken to believe that the Max pay-per-view and streaming deals very well could be separate from the amount outlined by Orrond and part of a different deal the two sides are working on. And the update I'm about to read you confirms that. So, when you look at that $170 million per year over 4 years, that's a tremendous increase. And there was also a lot of talk this week of whether or not that would make the company profitable. And of course, this got Eric Bischoff really butthurt. How do we know it's going to be profitable? You see how they move the goalposts? We just had 4 years of everybody proclaiming AEW is going to be dead. And now that they're getting a TV deal signed, now it's like they've switched their energy to, no, now we got to pick apart the specifics of the deal. Anything to put this company down is what we're going to do. At first, they're never going to survive. Warner Brothers Discovery is going to cancel them. Their ratings are in the shitter. They don't deserve to be on TV. Nobody would want them, and everybody's like, you guys are just dumb, because nobody is thinking that. Tony Khan, the entire relationship he's had with Warner Brothers Discovery, there has never been any concern from either side that this business agreement would not continue or extend. Everybody has understood that except for haters. So now they're picking apart this deal. Well, they said it's going to make it profitable. How do we know? Why does this bother you? Be a fan. Watch the show. Enjoy the show. The financial specifics of the deal should not outrage you in any way. But for those who are still thinking that they've got a gotcha or a dunk on AEW because, well, this deal's not going to make them profitable if you factor in talent, and then all of a sudden everybody's a fucking accountant, working at being the fucking day manager at a Sheetz gas station. Somehow you understand all about, business contracts and TV deals. Wish I knew as much as you did. But everybody's picking this apart. Oh, it's not going to make them profitable. What the fuck? First of all, who cares? This is a good deal. This is you being mad that AEW has got a new media rights deal. This is you being butthurt. This is your butthurtness coming out when you're now moving the goalposts and switching your energy to the specifics of the deal and finding ways to put down AEW through that. That just shows us how red and sore and swollen your butthole is. That's it. So when it comes to this deal, it's only for TV. That $170 million per year might make them profitable by itself without the other show that they've been shopping around in networks and pay-per-view streaming rights, because they're going to get a deal for that too. Here's what Andrew Zarian via the Mat Men podcast had to say today regarding AEW pay-per-views reportedly landing on Max in January. And I quote, "They will be on Max in January. They could do it sooner, but I do know that they are planning on January. I do know that pay-per-views are going to be on there. They don't have an exclusivity on pay-per-views, so it will also be available in other places. It's like WWE. You can still order those pay-per-views that are available on Peacock. So it sounds like you're going to have the option to stream the pay-per-views through Max, but you can also purchase the pay-per-views, just like WWE does it. Now, one thing that Andrew Zarian did not mention or may not know is if it's going to be included in the Max deal. With Peacock, you just subscribe to Peacock, you get all WWE shit. With AEW, it might be different. With AEW, you might have to subscribe to Max and then get the pay-per-view at a discounted price. But if not, if you get all the pay-per-views just with the subscription to Max, that means Max is going to be paying AEW a shitload of money for AEW just to basically get all their pay-per-view money up front from Max and then just push the pay-per-views out to them. You know, that's a much better financial deal than having pay-per-views and then waiting the time to get your money in from those shows. They're just buying the rights to use to stream your pay-per-views, and you get that money up front. And when you add that deal, when that deal is done, and don't forget about the negotiations that AEW is also having with other networks regarding that Shockwave show. And by the way, with this new deal, backtracking here, the deal with Warner Brothers Discovery keeps Dynamite and Collision on TBS and TNT, and is going to give them a block or two, or an hour or two block, I think, on True TV, which is going to, kind of transitioned into a sports network a little bit, and they're going to be airing some sort of a show on True TV. Now, that might be the Shockwave show, but AEW is also talking to other networks, so they are not going to be Warner Brothers Discovery exclusive anymore. Their shows are not just going to be under that umbrella. They're going to be with Warner Brothers Discovery. They might be on an FS1 or a Fox, and they're going to be on Max for their streaming, just like WWE is. They're spreading out across multiple platforms. So this is you know what this is called? Growth. That's what this is called. For all you haters, for all you AEW haters with a thorny, jagged stick lodged up your rectums about this company for whatever reason, I guess just because you're lonely and unloved, but whatever that reason might be, this is growth. I know you hate it. But you can't stop it. AEW will outlive your ass. So you can wish death on them all you want. You can shout from the rooftops how much you hate Tony Khan and his daddy's money and all this other stuff that makes you irrationally angry for no reason. Doesn't matter. Scream, cry all you want. They ain't going anywhere. As a matter of fact, they're growing. So point at the hard cams all you want. Point at the ratings all you want. Point at the attendance all you want. This company's growing. So take that and put it in your pipe and smoke it. Speaking of AEW, I did not see it. Did you guys see the Tony Khan FS1 special that ran ahead of Dynamite on Wednesday? I was recovering from a root canal that day. I kind of was napping on the couch when this thing aired. I only saw a few clips of it. And I love the clip of him walking into the NFL draft with that neck brace on. And you see like other general managers going like, what the hell's wrong with his neck? And they're like, he got a pile driver. And then you hear one guy going like, so it was planned. And Tony Khan just looks at him. He goes, well, you didn't get pile driven. Don't throw shade at me. They're laughing at his neck brace. He goes, you didn't get pile driven. I did. So all that was fun. Seems like, when it comes to, the Tony Khan hate, you see how ridiculous it is. The Tony Khan hate, the AEW hate, it is the MAGA of the IWC. It is. It's the, people are eating. I saw it on television. They're eating the cats. It's that shit. It's just deflect, and it just scream, irrational outrage. And people really, 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 really hate Tony Khan. And a lot of it is just completely unfounded. I mean, the guy is educated. He's, went to college, he's held jobs, they're so hung up on the daddy's money type of stuff. This guy has had no more opportunities than any other rich kid has had. It's not like he just get to sit on his ass playing video games all day while his dad feeds him billions of dollars. No, this kid went to school, he's educated, went to college, has held jobs. Vince McMahon, look what he made his kids do. Shane and Stephanie McMahon. They just didn't get given everything. They went to college. They got degrees. They became educated. They started. Shane McMahon was a referee. Stephanie McMahon started at the bottom. They worked their way up. They weren't just given everything. They had advantages because of who their dad was. Absolutely. They would not be in the position they are in without their dad. Absolutely. But it's not like they don't do anything. And this narrative that Tony Khan is some inept, worthless idiot is ridiculous. This is a guy that has 7 jobs. He works in the NFL and pro wrestling. He's the head booker, runs a wrestling company, owns sports teams, accomplishes more in one day than any of his haters accomplish in 5 years. So if this guy is inept and useless, what does that make them? For all the people that criticize this guy, how dumb he is. Well, if this guy who's a billionaire, a well-educated, college-educated billionaire who holds 7 jobs and accomplishes more in one day than you do in 5 years, if he's useless and inept, what are you? I think you're a lot worse than that. So just Jesus, the hate is so ridiculous. I'm sure there are things that Tony Khan does in pro wrestling that upset people. He's had some critics, from some of the people that have worked with him, some of the wrestlers that have worked with him, but he also has people who love him as a boss. And it just, for some reason, there's just this narrative out there with a very specific, MAGA energy driven group of men. That's another thing you notice. It's mostly men. I'm not saying women. There's no women out there that dislike AEW. I know that there are, but it's primarily one very specific type of male. One very, it's all the telltale signs. No deodorant, they smell, hairy fucking face, cross-eyed, no bitches, all that stuff, just yelling and screaming, no following, angry, jealous, pissed off that other people are succeeding in a world that they are failing in, and they just lash out. That's all this is. And I just don't believe these people are wrestling fans at all. They're just crazy. So when this media rights deal gets announced, they're going to have the deal officially announced at some point with Warner Brothers Discovery. In a couple of months, they're probably going to let us know that the pay-per-views are going to be available on Max. And there might even be another show on another network, completely separate from Warner Brothers Discovery. When these announcements are made, they're going to drool, they're going to slobber, they're going to scream, they're going to act like AEW is an independent company who has 15 fans at every one of their shows, and all of that's going to be bullshit because you make up outlandish lies and you embellish when you're mad. And that's what they're going to do. So just be prepared to mute Twitter on that day because it's going to be unthinkable. Now, switching gears to WWE, speaking of shows moving to other networks and deals being done, of course, we know WWE also is in the middle of a lot of transition right now as well. They are wrapping up business here with USA Network for Raw and NXT. NXT is going to bounce next week. I think they got 1 or 2 more episodes left, and then they start on the CW on October 1st. WWE Raw, as we know, is moving to Netflix in 2025, but the current deal that they're on ends in October. They ran an extension with USA Network, and we recently learned that throughout the rest of the year, Monday Night Raw on Mondays is only going to be a 2-hour show. So we're going to get 2-hour Raws and 2-hour SmackDowns for the rest of the year. But when Raw moves to Netflix, reportedly, they are going to be going back to 3 hours. We weren't totally sure about that. Now, I knew the 2-hour Raws were only going to run through the duration of the USA Network extension. We kind of knew that, but there really was no guarantee that when they start on Netflix, it's going to be a solid 3 hours because we don't know how the ad breaks are going to be. We don't know what kind of ads we're going to get. We don't know what they're going to do at all in regards to that. So we were speculating that maybe the show was going to be 2.5 hours with no commercials, or maybe it's going to be 3 hours with less commercials or whatever, or maybe it's going to be 2 hours with no commercials. It just kind of depends, but it sounds like it is going to be 3 hours. But then we had some big news dropping. I think it was yesterday, right? This is according to a report from WrestleVotes Radio, and I quote: "Before, I'm sorry, I'm not going to read that first sentence there. Our first real WrestleVotes tidbit here, as we get going on this backstage pass regarding SmackDown, is that we have learned that starting on January 3rd, SmackDown will indeed shift to 3 hours. So we're going to get a 3-hour SmackDown on USA every Friday, starting January 3rd, when Raw moves to Netflix." It goes on to say that the other big news here is the rumor that once the show ends, it will be available on Netflix, which we haven't heard elsewhere. Those are the internal talkings right now. That probably the next day after SmackDown airs, it will be visible on Netflix. But the real nugget here is that starting on January 3rd, the show will be 3 hours. So another thing we have to think about is, where to watch these shows after the fact. So that's kind of cool. The fact that SmackDown is going to air on USA, and there are some rumors that it will be available to watch on Netflix after the fact. That's pretty cool. I feel like that would have to be some sort of another deal unless it was tied into the Raw deal somehow. So I guess we're going to have to wait for confirmation on that. But also there's some news on WWE Peacock from PW Insider this week that says the WWE Peacock deal expires in February of 2026. And the expectation is that NXT and WWE Raw, that as NXT and WWE Raw migrate elsewhere, CW and Netflix, the archives of those stories will leave Peacock. So when NXT moves to CW on October 1st, apparently there's going to be no more NXT stuff on Peacock. When Raw goes to Netflix in January, all of the Raw stuff will be off of Peacock as well. So you won't be able to access it there anymore. You're probably going to have to go to Netflix for Raw and the CW app for NXT. But then it also says that SmackDown is going to be available on Netflix. So this is getting really kind of convoluted. And now that Peacock, at one point, I didn't think the Raw and SmackDown deals would affect the Peacock deal, because I thought the Peacock deal was separate to stream all of WWE's content. They just bought the rights to everything. That's why everything's available on there. It's basically the WWE network on Peacock. But now you're starting to separate your shit out. I still think that even though you might be on various networks or streaming platforms or whatnot, there still really needs to be a one-stop shop, I believe, for everything. And they're starting to spread that out now. So Peacock currently is our one-stop shop, but that deal is up in February of 2026, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if WWE might move all of their shit to Netflix. We might be doing our classic Sunday night watch-alongs streaming on Netflix in about a year or so. We're going to have to wait. But I feel like if that deal is expiring in February of 2026 with Peacock, they're probably not going to stay with Peacock. They're going to move elsewhere and maybe find another streaming platform. But I think, if you have to go to Netflix for Raw, CW for NXT, and then Peacock for everything else, that's too much. I just feel like one place would be way easier for the fans. And AEW, if they get their deal worked out with Max and they can stream their pay-per-views there, I'm hoping that will include all of the previous pay-per-views. Kind of how Peacock has it set up with WWE, where you can watch even from WCW, you can watch WCW, ECW, WWE pay-per-views, all of them. So I'm hoping that not only will the pay-per-views be available on Max, but the backlog of pay-per-views will also be available on Max. And, that would make it much easier for a wrestling fan to navigate, especially if the pay-per-view deal on Max included the Ring of Honor library, maybe even the Dynamite library. We got 5 years of Dynamite. In 6 months, Dynamite is going to outlive Nitro. Think about that. So there's a lot of Dynamites out there. I would love to get the backlog of Dynamites, have that entire Dynamite library available to us, all the pay-per-views, basically everything. So when we hear these rumblings and rumors of a streaming deal on Max for AEW's pay-per-views, great, but I hope that includes everything else. Just put our whole damn catalog on that app and pay us for it, because I would like to have that stuff accessible to me, where I can pull up any Dynamite, any pay-per-view at any time and watch it. That would be helpful to a fan like me, and I'm sure to a lot of you guys as well. So it's weird. It's stuff that we always have to keep our eye on, because both companies are making a lot of moves, and WWE, even though AEW is about to sign their new shit, but WWE has already signed their stuff, and now they're moving into the transition period of moving from network to network. And the business is kind of like a dryer right now, or a washing machine. Everything's just kind of, but eventually it's going to get, by the time we get 2025, by the time February of 2025 gets here, things will settle down. We'll know where everything's at. But then we're going to have another issue a year later, when WWE's probably going to move their streaming off of Peacock somewhere else, since some of it's already going to leave Peacock with this latest rounds of deals. So a lot going on in that regard, but it's been fun to kind of watch this. Now, in terms of SmackDown going to 3 hours, that was a big topic for conversation too. SmackDown going to 3 hours. I have not seen one person that's been happy about this. And I agree. I don't think they should do it, but there is one, kind of silver lining, and is in that it makes both shows equal, really, for the first time. Because when they've been trying to do this brand split ever since 2016, hasn't always been like Raw 3 hours, because Raw's been 3 hours for 12 years now, right? When did they go to 3 hours officially? 2012 or something? So it feels like they've had 12 years of 3 hour Raws. So in that time, SmackDown has always been the inferior show, because it's been 2 hours. Prior to that, when both shows were 2 hours, I still feel like Raw was very much the A show. SmackDown was switching nights a lot, switching networks a lot, UPN, CW, your grandmama's network, all those different places that it landed on. A lot of times it was taped, and it just felt like the B show. So now if SmackDown goes to 3 hours, I understand that that is a lot of wrestling for a lot of fans. And I question whether or not it's very smart to risk oversaturating your shit when things are going so great. You know, right now, WWE's on top of the world, ratings, attendance, interest. Everything has just been through the roof ever since Vince McMahon got his ass out of there. Everything's been very, very good. So, you know, watering down, oversaturating, flooding the market with too much wrestling, is that really what you want to do? You know, but the silver lining in my head is saying, well, okay, at least now you have two shows that should, in theory, be exactly equal. One's on the USA Network, and the SmackDown, a USA Network relationship that goes back with WWE 40 plus years, or about 40 now. Yeah, probably 42 years they've been together. And then you have WWE Raw on Netflix. Big industry-changing moment there. WWE Raw, that's been on cable TV for 32 years, is now going to be moving to Netflix, to a streaming platform. That's crazy. You know, all of these deals lining up these shows make them kind of, or at least Raw and SmackDown, kind of equal for the first time. So right now, SmackDown does not have the roster to support a 3-hour show. But the draft isn't until after WrestleMania. We'll move up the draft. You don't really want to do that because you kind of by now, Triple H has got WrestleMania in his head, and he probably knows the general direction of where he wants to go with at least the top talent. If you hold a draft prior to that, you'd essentially have to do it right now. You know, because if you hold a draft in January or February, that's on the road to WrestleMania. You're not going to do that. That's a terrible place to hold a draft. So I don't feel like SmackDown is going to be able, the roster on SmackDown is going to be able to sustain a 3-hour show unless you try to even out the rosters a little earlier. So I'm hoping they're going to run some sort of an angle where Aldis and Pierce make some trades or something, or they do something, maybe even like a supplemental draft or something to give SmackDown a little bit extra. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait until your post-WrestleMania draft, and I just don't know how SmackDown can survive a 3-hour show for 4 months, maybe more, on that roster without things evening out. So they might have to do something. They might have to create some shit. I mean, if we get that War Games at Survivor Series, if we are still going to get some sort of a version of the old bloodline versus Roman and Jey Uso and Jimmy and Sammy and all of that, one way to start getting SmackDown's roster beefed up a little bit more would be, I think, to move Sammy and Jey over there. So if you put Sammy and Jey over there, that's two major stars you've got over there now. SmackDown needs some heels, though. So you might have that. That's why, you know, Orton and Owens, I think both turning heel, adding Jey and Sammy to the roster. So now you got two more, you know, main eventers essentially in Jey and Sammy. Jimmy will probably be back by then. Roman, of course, is back. We'll probably see the Wise Man back. And if you got a fresh heel in Kevin Owens, a fresh heel in Randy Orton, possibly even a returning AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura, where the hell are they, by the way? You could have a roster, I think, that could be theoretically strong enough to make it until you get to that draft. Then once you have the draft, then that's your time creatively, your chance creatively to really even out those rosters. Then you can do the draft, then get together behind the scenes, decide who's all going to be on which show, and then do the draft, and then everything's going to be even Steven. But until then, I think you need to figure out some sort of storyline way to add a couple of more big stars to SmackDown. And I think you have the opportunity to do that storyline-wise with what's going to be happening with War Games. So we will see. But SmackDown going to 3 hours, it's right now being universally shit on. I haven't seen one person. I think I'm the only person that's even come close to defending it, because I'm not looking forward to having to write down 3 hours of SmackDown notes before my wingy on Saturdays. It sucks. So especially if a lot of it's filler and whatnot. But then again, you never know. This might, this keeps WWE on cable TV for 3 hours. They'd still have a 3-hour show on cable TV because, one thing you have to think about, or at least consider, Raw could look very different on Netflix. They might be going for a whole new look here or a whole new concept. We don't even know yet. So keeping that, 3-hour WWE show as we know it on USA Network, is kind of that, link to normalcy, I suppose. But I'm going to give it time. The wrestling world is changing right before our very eyes. It's very cool to kind of recognize it. You're like, there's a lot of transition happening right now. We've been in a transition period for the last 5 years, ever since AEW came around, but things have gotten really weird after we came on the other side of the pandemic and the Vince McMahon stuff and some of the shifts in momentum, specifically Cody Rhodes and CM Punk and some of these stars moving around and where the business is. Both companies now growing, extending their media rights, spreading out their umbrellas even further. AEW, I believe, will probably always be a distant second, but that's fine. Fans are, they're saying everybody sucks. If you're just comparing them to WWE, you got to look at what AEW has accomplished, and they've accomplished a lot. They're not going to look very great next to WWE, but in terms of a second wrestling promotion out there competing, being on cable TV, offering pay-per-views, selling out arenas, they've done a lot of that. So this is good. It's good for wrestling to kind of evolve, and AEW not falling victim to some of the issues that WCW and even ECW had on networks that didn't give a shit about them. Warner Brothers Discovery very much wants AEW to be successful, and they cooperate and they work together, and there aren't people in the company that are looking down on a property that they don't like. That was the issue with Spike TV and Turner when Ted Turner left with WCW and whatnot, and it feels like both companies have very healthy relationships with the people who distribute their content. That's good for wrestling. There is no bad in that sentence at all, no matter how bad you want to look for it. And speaking of NXT, they're set to move to the CW network on October 1st. They're going to have a match between Roxanne and Julia, and I guess CM Punk I guess they're building that up. That's not going to be on October 1st. But this past week, they had a segment between Roxanne and Julia setting up a future match where CM Punk was kind of in the middle of that. And then Punk was also in the middle of the Ethan Page and Trick Williams segment where he did announce that he will be the special guest referee for their match against each other on the debut on CW on October 1st. That'll be interesting. I'd be willing to bet large dollars that Drew McIntyre might be there to maybe attack Punk 4 days ahead of Hell in the Cell or of Bad Blood. I think that's an option. And they also announced last week that Javon Evans will be facing Randy Orton on October 8th. They did a little deal in the ring with him, and Randy was announced for his opponent for the October 8th episode, and that's awesome. It'd be crazy to see Randy Orton working in NXT, and they are going to be producing some shows on the road, and apparently there's also been some rumors and reports and rumblings that WWE could be looking to move their developmental performance center out of Orlando and into Vegas. So if you ever want to test your talent and see who's going to be good boys and girls and bad boys and girls, one good way to do that is have your PC be in fucking Vegas. So I don't know about that. We'll monitor that. If they leave Orlando, maybe they want to get the hell out of Florida so they don't have to share a state with AEW. I don't know. But it's weird because a lot of wrestlers live in Florida. There is, I don't know exactly how many, but tons of wrestlers have already just lived in Florida even before the days of the PC. Jericho and Big Show and Kevin Nash and Hulk Hogan and Beefcake and so many guys live there. Wrestlers live there because it's warm and it's nice and it's warm and there's beaches everywhere. But when the PC came around and NXT started, all of the talent that they sign usually get homes or buy homes or at least rent apartments in the Orlando area. So if you're going to move your PC to Vegas, think about how many wrestlers have to relocate. They're all going to have to relocate. Now, granted, if you're a developmental star under a developmental contract, I doubt you're buying a home down there. So you probably just have an apartment, no big deal. But I hope WWE at least pays for these people to end their leases early and pays for their moving expenses to move over there if they end up doing that. This is just hypothetical, no real credible sources on this. This is just rumors and wild speculation, just like we like. But if that is what they do and they move out of the state, I feel bad for all the wrestlers that have to kind of uproot their lives. They've been living there. They know the area now. They know what grocery store they like. They know what dive bar to go to. They know who has the best Mexican food, that type of thing. Now they're going to a whole nother city. That's going to be weird. But, Vegas is a market, and there's a lot you can do when you are in that city. So we'll keep an eye on everything related to NXT. The news continues, guys. Good news, finally. Ken Shamrock, Kenny Boy, has signed a legend deal with WWE. That's great. I'm happy for Kenny. Ken Shamrock was always one of my favorites. It's amazing what a short run he had. He came in 1997 and he was gone by 1999. He had a little bit over a 2-year in-ring wrestling career. I think he finally got in the ring around, for WWE anyway, he got in the ring around April or May of 97, and he was gone by September of 99. So that was such a short run. He won the Intercontinental Championship. He had a couple of title matches. And there was a time there where I thought, he had a legitimate chance to actually win the championship or be the champion, but never really panned out for him. But I was always a fan of Ken Shamrock. He's kind of like the precursor, the appetizer to what Brock Lesnar became. And I thought Shamrock was very intimidating, good fighter, but he was nothing compared to Brock Lesnar. And that would have been a great match. Ken Shamrock against Brock Lesnar would have been fun. And I wish that Shamrock would have been in the company long enough to work with Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar. Those three men, Shamrock and Angle and Lesnar, would have been unreal to see together, involved with each other. Kenny, I think, was just a little bit older than those guys. And even though Kenny was good in the ring, he wasn't, in my mind, as good as Angle or Brock. I think Angle or Brock both far exceeded him in the ring, but Kenny still brought what he brought. And Ken Shamrock had some amazing moments in WWE. Who can ever remember the chair shot to The Rock's face, which was incredible. And I liked Shamrock. He got us ready. He got the wrestling fans ready and prepared our brains for what MMA and shoot fighters entering the business is going to look like a little bit. And we saw, some legit people, in Angle and Brock Lesnar since then. And Shamrock really, kind of laid the groundwork for those guys. And I hate that his run was as short as it was, but that was right in the middle of when I was like the heaviest into WWE. So the time that he was in WWE was during the time that I was going to the most amount of shows. I think I met Kenny twice or once. Definitely met Kenny once. I'm trying to think of the other time. Super nice guy. And just happy that he's getting a Legends deal with WWE. Hopefully he'll make some appearances. WWE does seem to be signing a lot of people to Legends deals lately. We had the reports of Miss Jacqueline and Victoria, and now Kenny. For some reason, Armando Alejandro Estrada, and God knows who else. So I guess, I don't know. You can look at it from a, kind of a pessimistic point of view. Like maybe they're signing all these people to shut them up so they don't talk about Vince McMahon. I don't know, but at least Ken Shamrock is a name that I can get behind and I can appreciate and like. And I'm happy for signing a Legends deal because Kenny is a legend. And speaking of Vince McMahon, as we know, Vince McMahon's Netflix docuseries airs on Wednesday, September 25th, the same day as Grand Slam. We have an update on Janelle Grant. I'm going to kind of paraphrase an article from Brandon Thurston at Post Wrestling. Big write-up on this. And this is Grant's attorney, Ann Callis, made some comments this week, and I want to kind of get into what she said. So I'm going to kind of read you this article from Brandon Thurston at Post Wrestling. And I quote, Janelle Grant's reps held a remote press briefing on Thursday, providing updates on her lawsuit against WWE, Vince McMahon, and John Laurinaitis, filed this past January. The media call comes just ahead of the September 25th release of Mr. McMahon's 6-part docuseries on Netflix. Grant's attorney, Ann Callis, not related to Don, began by reiterating Grant's experience as a survivor of incomprehensible abuse, describing the extreme cruelty inflicted by McMahon from 2019 through early 2022. Callis said Grant now suffers from PTSD, suicidal ideation, and an inability to leave her home for extended periods. Throughout the call, questions centered on the portrayal of Grant and her story in the Mr. McMahon docuseries. Grant's team confirmed they had not seen the documentary and reiterated that Grant deserves the opportunity to tell her own story in her own way at the right time. Responding to concerns about the documentary potentially whitewashing WWE executives who are anonymized in Grant's lawsuit or cherry-picking Grant's story, Callis declined to criticize the project and said she's confident Grant will have her day in court. In a report last March, Callis confirmed the identities of the WWE executives referred to in the complaint who were allegedly to have known about McMahon's relationship with Grant, but aren't alleged to have had knowledge or participated in the abuse. Our current WWE president, Nick Khan, former WWE executive Stephanie McMahon, former Chief Operating Officer Brad Bloom, and former General Counsel Brian Nurse. Callis noted the team's effort to obtain communications between McMahon and Dr. Carlin Kolker, a physician who treated Grant during her time with WWE, as part of their bill of discovery. The call closed with a focus on humanizing Grant, saying, quote, Janelle is a human being who deserves justice. She deserves her day in court. That's our bottom line. She's a victim and a survivor. She's not a WWE storyline. And that is the most true statement someone could ever utter, because I think with WWE and a lot of fans, you know, they do have a tendency to, you know, let things slide that shouldn't be because of, you know, your pro wrestling brain, you know, operating the way it does. And that's the way a lot of people are. But this is real life shit here. This is not a storyline. This is not being embellished. And I think they wanted to get some comments out there before this docuseries came out, because they haven't seen it. A few people have. There have been some screenings of it. And based on the synopsis of each episode and what it gets into, it does sound like they are going to heavily discuss what Vince McMahon did. I think they open up the first episode talking about all that right at first. Then they go into a more, you know, lineal account of his life and career. And then in that final episode, because that's the chapter we're in now of Vince's life, everything going on, that's where they really get into the abuse and the lawsuit and things like that. So I would like to think the docuseries is going to be fair, but it's a docuseries airing on a platform that is going to be doing business for WWE for probably many years to come, with Raw being over there starting in January, probably some more content being added to Netflix. And Netflix is fans of wrestling. They got that Dump Matsumoto documentary going on as well, or that TV show that looks great. And yeah, so it's kind of weird. Maybe conflict of interest, I'm not sure. But it sounds like, based on what we read, they're not going to be shying too much away from what Vince did. But I think some of Grant's attorneys are concerned that they could perhaps be whitewashing some of the people in the company who were involved, or maybe not involved, but at least knew about it. You know, we didn't see Triple H's name mentioned here, but we do know that it would be really hard for him to not know what Vince McMahon might be up to. So there's still so many unwritten parts to this story. You know, we have not gotten to any sort of official indictment yet for Vince, with the, you know, the federal government getting involved in investigating him and getting a search warrant, you know, plus this trial, you know, these court proceedings, with which, if it goes to trial, is going to get very ugly. And I'm sure it's going to take a long time for any of this stuff to get hammered out. But Vince, it doesn't seem like his situation has really changed that much. He is still in a world of shit. And I, for one, cannot wait to watch this docuseries on Wednesday. And like I said, I'll be up here with a review on that as quickly as I can get one to you. But I feel like I'm going to have to watch through it twice. Most of it. You know, I think a lot of the stuff that talks about Vince's career, you know, we know a lot about that. So, you know, if one full episode or a couple of episodes give me information that I already know, I might not have to go back and watch those again. But for the most part, I think this is going to take 2 full watch throughs for me to really give you guys a comprehensive review on it. So it will be coming here very shortly. That pretty much does it for my wrestling news. Luckily, I think we're done with that. I think we should move on to last night's SmackDown on the USA Network. Talk about that real quick. But before I do, let me just knock out a couple of supers here in the chat. Make sure everything's going okay. Anybody who hasn't done a like on that thumbs upper, please hit me with that. I'd appreciate it. Dan Huckins, AEW Collision is in your city tonight. Not going to the show, but they have an after party at the MGM that you'll be going to. Right on. Well, that's fun. Rodrigo's got $2 for us. Is Jim Cornette next to sign a Legends deal? No, I doubt that. Although maybe he actually might be, because of his rhetoric towards AEW. But I also feel like probably no. I think a Legends deal restricts you from doing some things, and Cornette doesn't really need it. You know, I mean, at some point, Cornette might want to go into Hall of Fame. He's definitely Hall of Fame worthy. And I think WWE is more likely to bring him in now than before because of, you know, how he's just primarily known as being an AEW hater. So they're, you know, might be a little more likely to talk to him or whatever. But I don't know. You know, he's a tough one to read. He's in the business of hate right now, like so many podcasters are. You know, the more you yell and scream and the more you put down a company that the tribal fans hate, the more those numbers do. But I'm not going to sell myself out for hate. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to come up here and scream and yell just because a good portion of the wrestling audience gets off on that type of content. I don't. I don't want to watch it. I don't watch anybody who screams and yells. I'm not going to scream and yell. I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to irrationally hate something for no reason. I'll offer criticisms when valid. When AEW or WWE gives me something stupid to watch, I'll say, hey, that was stupid, but just blindly hating and raging on something for no reason. And then it's in the same breath calling yourself a wrestling fan and criticizing others for not being a real wrestling fan because they like a company you don't. Not getting in that business and never will. That business is for losers who are lonely. And here we are winners who are not lonely and are happy in life. I like my life. Don't you all like yours? I'm not going to yell and scream. Stupid. Let's talk about SmackDown last night. Pretty decent show. Opened up with LA Knight defeating Andrade. Andrade got his U.S. title shot, I believe, last week, defeating Carmelo Hayes. This was a really good match. I enjoyed it, but it had a bad as hell finish. LA Knight went up for his running up on the top rope to throw the guy off move that he does, but he missed it. He botched it kind of twice. He ran up, slipped, tried to get up again, slipped again, finally got up to the top, and then Andrade was like kind of called an audible, shoved him off, jumps back down, they regroup. Knight hits Andrade immediately with the BFT for the win. And then after the match, you get this weird kind of stare down between the two. And LA Knight is talking to him and he's pointing to the corner. And we did a watch along last night. We were watching SmackDown together. And if you go back and watch the reaction from last night, I was under the belief, based on how I was looking at their body language and what was being said, I thought LA Knight was kind of apologizing to him. The way LA Knight like pointed to the corner. I thought he was like, man, I'm sorry about that, man. And then Andrade had his hand over his face, and he's clearly saying something back because I just want everybody to get along and everything to be cookies and rainbows. I was under the assumption that LA Knight was apologizing for the spot. Andrade was like, all good, man. And then they went in for like this handshake, but Andrade picks up his hand and kind of does a fist bump. Or no, maybe LA Knight does a fist bump, and then Andrade doesn't do anything, and then he kind of grabs LA Knight's hand, and LA Knight kind of pulls it away, and they have this really awkward, kind of like the belt swapping deal with Charlotte and Becky, just this really weird, I don't know what the fuck that's about, and then they finally kind of come together and shake hands, and then Andrade gives him his due and points to him and says, yeah, you're the champ, and leaves. I would like to think there's no issues there. I'd like to think that was just that match was good. The only thing that I saw that went wrong miscommunication-wise was at the very end when Knight slipped. So that's just a slip. That's a mistake. That's a botch. No big deal. You recovered. Match was over. I can't imagine having heat for that. You know, unless Andrade was giving him shit. I thought LA Knight was apologizing for it. Andrade was like, it's all good. And then they had that very awkward handshake. So it looked half real, half not real, half work, half shoot. I didn't know what was going on there. I don't know if any word has come out backstage about these guys. I don't think Andrade is in WWE to cause problems. I don't think Andrade is in WWE to smack LA Knight the way he smacked Sammy Guevara. I think everything's totally cool there. Maybe a little bit of miscommunication, but nothing two professionals can't handle. But it was weird, and I'm not really sure what that was all about. After that, after the match, I think we came back from commercial, and Andrade and Carmelo had a hell of a brawl backstage. And now we're going to get these two guys again. Match number 6. Andrade currently leads 3-2. That match is going to be next week, and you know that's going to lead to a game 7. So I'm surprised that they didn't wait until the 7-match series was over and have the match number 7 be for the number 1 contender spot. Kind of weird, but it looks like the two will be going 7 matches in kind of like an unofficial best of 7. You know, they've shown the record, but this, I don't think they've officially announced that this is a best of 7, have they? It's just kind of turned into one. So excuse me. We'll get another one of those matches next week. After that was the big, oh my God, this was so good. How good was that Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes segment? They kind of touched on this. We heard that Cody and Roman were in Atlanta filming something, and that was going to be shown on SmackDown last night. And so basically it was a meeting. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns needed to have a meeting to speak on things ahead of their Bad Blood tag team match against Solo and Jacob, right, at Bad Blood. So the meeting spot for this was going to be in a state and a city that both men have a lot of connection with. And that is around, I guess, the Atlanta area in Georgia. And they decided to meet on the 50-yard line at Georgia Tech, in the football stadium at Georgia Tech. So Roman Reigns arrives in a 7-car motorcade for Roman Reigns. I think Biden has 6. So Roman shows up with 7 cars. Cody shows up in like what looks like a Mustang Tesla looking car. It's white. And they come face to face at the 50-yard line. And this was so marvelously shot. And I really like this. This feels like the direction the business is going in. I think as the years go by, we're going to see more and more things like this. Vince McMahon didn't really like this type of stuff, but now we're seeing it more and more, and the way it was shot, and it was just very, very cinematic, very film-like. You can tell that they want to make this kind of story and match a very big deal. And they basically come face to face, and Roman is like, look around you, man. Put your eyes on everything in here. It's mine. This is my city. And Cody is like, this is your city? Oh, yeah? Well, you just played football here, and as soon as you were done, you went back to the beach. But Atlanta is my home. He said, right down the street, center stage. Right down the corner from that, the Omni. My family's had a foothold here in this state for a long time. This is my home more than it's your home. And Roman says that he's got nothing to lose because the bloodline took everything from him. They took his wise man, they took his bloodline, and they took his Ulafala. And for the first time in his life, he's a man without a country, and he has absolutely nothing to lose because he doesn't have anyone. But I argue he has a lot of people because he showed up in a 7, count 'em, car motorcade to get there. So he has plenty of homies. It's not like he's just by himself, but in a lonely apartment like episode 1 of Cobra Kai with Johnny Lawrence, drinking warm banquet beer cans off the floor. Roman's fine. He's got a family. He's got tons of friends. He's just lost, everything that he's had in pro wrestling recently. And because of these losses, he said that he has nothing to lose, but that Cody has everything to lose. And Cody said that he told Roman, he goes, I told you a year and a half ago that you would one day be sitting here as a chief without a tribe. And he goes, we have a tribal chief, and it's not you. We have a WWE champion, and it's not you. And then kind of the music stops. And that's when it gets very movie-like. And then Roman is like, just tell me what you want. Almost like he's being held hostage. Just tell me what you want. And Cody says, all he wants is his word that he'll have his back so that I can have yours. That's all I want. And Roman says, okay, I will give you my word. But after it's all over, I'm coming for what's mine. And then Cody's like, well, this is not yours. This is mine. And Roman then decides to leave. And he says to Cody, he goes, you're in my way. They're in a football field. They're in the middle. They're on the logo of the 50-yard line in a empty football stadium. And Cody is somehow in Roman's way. Walk around him, bitch. But Cody kind of steps aside, and then Roman is like, no, man, you're in my way in life. I popped. That was actually kind of funny. But I don't even think he needed to say that line, you're in my way in life. I mean, it was established. Roman made it known in this whole thing that they're going to temporarily align here, fight a common enemy. They might even align beyond that if Cody gets in on that War Games match at Survivor Series. But he's letting Cody know that he'll be coming after that championship again when it's over. So you have to look ahead to when that Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns match might happen. We know we're going to get it again. I really don't think we're going to get it at 3 straight WrestleManias. Unless it's a 2-night thing where Cody and Roman do it on night 1 or something like that. I think it's probably going to be Cody and Rock. So Cody and Roman, you got 2 matches I feel like need to happen probably before WrestleMania. Cody and Roman, but also Roman and Solo. So after Bad Blood, the next stop is Crown Jewel in Saudi. I feel like we could get Cody and Roman right there in Saudi Arabia. Or we could get Roman and Solo. So Roman and Solo, a match for the Ulafala. You could do that at Saudi. But if Roman wins, then you're going to turn right around and do the match at War Games. You feel like The Rock's got to be involved in that. So you just don't know how all of these matches are going to fall and what the order of them are going to be. But there's another show on the calendar that we just learned about recently, December 14th, the return of Saturday night's main event on NBC. I shit you not, I would put Cody and Roman there. Because when they brought back Saturday night's main event in 2007, 2008, it was dog shit. Hated it. Stupid, pointless, nothing happened. If you want this to be a big deal and you've got a primetime show now on NBC and you really want to show, a wider audience, what you guys do, have a match between your two top guys, a WrestleMania rematch, Saturday night's main event, about the same time period that lapsed between Hogan and Andre's rematch from WrestleMania 3 into February of the following year when they did it on the main event. So I would book it for Saturday night's main event, or I would book Roman and Solo for Saturday night's main event, something there. But I feel like Roman and Solo and Roman and Cody should happen in Saudi and Saturday night's main event. Wherever you want to put them, put one and one on the other, and then you got the War Games in the middle and Survivor Series. That's the way I feel like this is going, but I also feel like, Cody might be facing The Rock at WrestleMania, so if he drops the belt, then you can just do Cody and The Rock. Otherwise, one idea I had, and I think might be a good one for the Royal Rumble, because if Roman is not going to win the championship back ahead of WrestleMania, that means he's probably going to be in the Royal Rumble. Unless Roman Reigns gets a title shot at the Royal Rumble, which he might, he's going to have to be in the Royal Rumble. And how cool would it be if the final two men in the Royal Rumble were Roman Reigns and The Rock? And The Rock wins, and he goes on to face Cody. Something like that. Especially if The Rock makes his presence known in War Games itself and reveals himself to be pulling the strings with the new bloodline. And plus, we're going to see Paul Heyman back soon. Wise Man will be showing up at some point. So this is all fun. Let me know in the chat, or if you're watching this on demand in the comments below, where you think Cody and Roman is going to go and how does it culminate and where does the title match happen. After that segment, WWE doubled down on the Vinci stuff. Giovanni Vinci came out second week in a row to face Apollo Crews and lost again. This time he had a little bit of offense, ultimately got rolled up and pinned again. So this is what they're doing. So a lot of people were unhappy about how the match went last week, and instead of maybe pivoting or changing directions, WWE doubled down. Vinci lost again. After the Cody and Roman stuff, you saw Kevin Owens kind of sitting on a crate backstage thinking about the situation. Seems to be a little bit unnerved about it because of everything he went through with the bloodline, and now seeing Cody and Roman kind of teaming up is kind of messing with his head a little bit. So he comes out to the ring to cut a promo to talk about this. But before he can really get into it, he's interrupted by the bloodline. They come in the ring, start brawling, beating up Kevin Owens. DIY comes out to make the save, and then Nick Aldis runs out and makes a six-man main event later on, impromptu, Owens and DIY taking on the bloodline. But that's not the match we would get, which was kind of weird. And then after that, we had the tag team match that was advertised last week with Bayley and Naomi teaming up to take on Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton. They made the stipulation last week that if Bayley or Naomi loses, whoever gets pinned has to leave SmackDown. But if Naomi and Bayley win, whoever pins Nia Jax gets a title shot. Well, then they changed the stip to a tornado tag, or they added tornado tag as an additional stipulation. So now all four women are going to be in the ring at the same time. And I was saying last night during the reaction, during the watch along, I said they changed it to a tornado tag because whatever finish we're going to see here is going to be a finish that can only really logically be done in tornado rules, which probably means a double pin. And that's what we got. Bayley and Naomi both pinned Nia Jax for the win. And we all just assumed that that's going to lead to our triple threat. Well, they announced later on that it's not going to lead to a triple threat. Bayley and Naomi are going to face each other next week one-on-one. The winner of that gets a shot against Nia Jax, but I still think they're going to do another double pin or something, and we're still going to get that triple threat. They're just taking the scenic route to get to that announcement. So that was fun. And then the main event was bullshit. It was the Bloodline taking on Owens and DIY, but prior to the match, DIY is attacked by the Bloodline, and they were replaced by the Street Profits. Why? I mean, is there any news? I didn't see any news today about a backstage report about some last-minute change happening. If the Street Profits were going to be the partners of Kevin Owens, why didn't the Street Profits just come out and make the save in that segment? And then Aldis makes the impromptu 6-man main event, Owens and Profits versus Bloodline. Why wasn't it just that? Why do this extra step to involve DIY just to kick him out of the match? It was weird. Typical match here, brawl. Everybody's brawling. It's fucking going crazy. We get a disqualification after somebody gets thrown into the steel steps. Now, the referee has kind of lost control, but he hasn't lost control that much. And I forgot who it even was, got thrown against the steps, and then he just calls for the bell. I do not feel like that should have been a disqualification last night. That was very bizarre. But it probably really wasn't the match that was important. It was, what they were going to do in the end. So after the bell rings, the Bloodline starts decimating everyone. DIY then hobbles back out there to try to help out, but they get taken out. And then Cody Rhodes, I've been waiting for him all night. I did not think he was going to be missing SmackDown. They're on week number 2 on USA. Of course you want the champ there. I'm sure whatever that shit was he did with Roman Reigns, they filmed earlier in the week. So he should be in Sacramento. Finally, he shows up at the very end to make the save, hits a sweet Cody cutter to Jacob Fatu, which looked great. And Kevin Owens and Cody run off the Bloodline, and Cody is standing there. Owens, of course, again with the chair, kind of looking like he's thinking about it, but ultimately does not nail Cody. And I feel like Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens have got another match coming. So if the hypothetical, I said Roman and Cody need to happen and Roman and Solo need to happen. Hypothetically, if Roman Reigns faces Solo Sikoa at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia, I think November 2nd, for the Ula Fala, then you can do Cody and Kevin Owens there. So you might get Cody and Kevin and Roman and Solo in Saudi, and then maybe, just maybe, you can save Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes for Saturday night's main event. That's what I'm hoping they do. We will have to see. But that is your SmackDown last night in a nutshell. Not a bad show, but not a lot happened on it either. So maybe, SmackDown moving to 3 hours, one thing we have to remember, it might not be that bad if these long Bloodline dramatic segments continue into next year. SmackDown could have benefited from a 3-hour show during some of the heyday of the Bloodline stuff when they were having 45-minute long segments on SmackDown, remember? So if that's still the plan, if they still plan to have, SmackDown having these very cinematic type of moments and segments surrounding the Bloodline and Roman and Cody, those things tend to go long. So that extra hour might actually benefit a show like SmackDown in the long run. But I think that's something else we might need to look for before those rosters get evened out on SmackDown, is you might see a lot more long, drawn-out segments like that to help fill the time to tell stories, which might not be that bad either. We'll have to see. Like I said, I didn't really watch Dynamite this week. I was recovering from a dentist appointment. I slept a little bit. By the time I woke up, I caught the second half of the show, but it really felt like a phoned-in episode. Not a whole lot happened. We got the announcement that Ricochet will be facing Will Ospreay in a couple of weeks on the 5th anniversary of Dynamite coming up, I believe, on October 2nd. And we have Rampage. Rampage coming up next week. I'm sorry, not Rampage. Excuse me. Let me take a drink of water here because I'm losing my voice. We have Grand Slam. That's what I was trying to say. Grand Slam coming up next week. It's going to be Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin, Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness, Mariah May versus Yuka Sakazaki, and the Young Bucks defending the AEW tag titles against Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. Now, one of the biggest critiques on Dynamite this week was the fact that they didn't do shit really to promote Danielson and Nigel. They didn't have these guys on the show, no in-ring segment between the two, nothing to build up this match. Granted, they have a ton of history. They AEW uploaded 11 hours of Danielson and Nigel shit, I think, from Ring of Honor, and that's all fine and good. And this match is great for a wrestling nerd. That's awesome, but I feel like you should have done something on Wednesday to hype up what's happening this Wednesday, and they really didn't, and it felt like a really, really flat show. So Dynamite didn't appear to be that enjoyable this week, and I skipped most of the show. But Grand Slam this week is looking real, real good. On Rampage last night, I didn't really watch much of that either. However, I am aware of how kind of Wheeler Yuta is acting a little absent-minded and a little bit distracted ever since the Blackpool Combat Club trauma happened to him at the pay-per-view, so I kind of like that. And we had a segment last night where Saraya is going to be taking on Jamie Hayter, and she announced that match for Grand Slam, and it's going to be a Saraya rules match. So Saraya is in the ring, Jamie Hayter is on the ramp, and Saraya says, when I face you next week at Grand Slam, it's going to be a Saraya rules match. One thing I wasn't clear on, though, is if, number one, I don't know what the hell a Saraya rules match is, but when she says Grand Slam, is she talking about Wednesday Grand Slam, or is she talking about Rampage Grand Slam? Because a lot of times a Rampage will spill over. They'll probably tape Rampage on Wednesday too. So it might be a Rampage, it might be like Grand Slam week. Isn't Rampage technically part of Grand Slam whenever they do Grand Slams? So that might be a match not for Wednesday, but for Friday. I tried to find a match graphic somewhere online, and I cannot find out where exactly that Saraya and Hayter match is taking place, because if it does happen on Dynamite, that means there's going to be 2 women's matches on the show. Not that that's a bad thing, but maybe a little bit uncommon for a show like Grand Slam. So we'll have to see where that lands. And not sure if it was mentioned earlier in that AEW media rights deal, but it does look like Rampage will be no more. It doesn't look like they're going to continue Rampage unless that's the show that moves to True TV. But I don't think it is. They might be just canceling Rampage altogether, which isn't a huge loss for me as a fan because I don't really watch Rampage. So we'll see how all that goes. And then we have Collision tonight, goes live in 10 minutes. Darby Allin versus Evil Uno, Mariah May versus Lady Frost, and another one of those 10-man all-star tags. This one looks like it has Hook, FTR, and the Outrunners. FTR and the Outrunners have kind of formed a little alliance there, which means FTR will probably turn on them. They're going to be taking on the Grizzleds, the Beast Mortos, and Roderick Strong and Roosh. That should be a good one tonight if you are a Collision fan. And I have reached the conclusion of my notes, luckily 10 minutes early, because I was worrying that we were going to get done with all of this and on time today. But we did. Right on. Another wingy in the books. I appreciate y'all being here for that. I'll cruise to the chat here, see if there's anything else I need to mention. Mike Witt. Oh, don't make me repeat it, man. Thanks for the $2. Any watch along tomorrow? No, unfortunately not. I had to cancel that. I had one scheduled, Bad Blood 2003. But found out last minute that I have a gig that I can't really pass up. I'm kind of an independent contractor in some regards, and I've got a big one tomorrow that when it was offered to me, I was like, okay, I'll do it. It's too much of a bag. I can't, I have to do it. So unfortunately, I canceled. I'm so sad about it. I canceled tomorrow's classic watch along, and the following Sunday, next Sunday, I have the same thing going on. And this is very rare. So it's going to be very rare where I'm going to be busy on back-to-back Sundays. So we're going to be missing the next 2 Sundays for classic watch alongs. But to make it up to you, Mike, we'll be here on Monday for Raw and on Wednesday for Grand Slam. We're going to watch that together. So you'll still get me this week. I've got 4 shorts currently in the can, a couple of other things I'm working on, a new member video, and lots of stuff. And I got a lot of work to do tonight when I get home on YouTube. So keep an eye out. You'll see some stuff. I'll put up at least a short or something tomorrow, so you won't be completely absent from me. But unfortunately, no watch along tomorrow afternoon. I am sorry about that. But I've got to get out of here now. I got to head to my other job. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your Saturday night. Thank you so much for being here. And the next time you will see me live will be on Monday for the Raw review. But you'll probably get some small content hitting the channel before then. Y'all have a great, great, great rest of your day. And I'll talk to you real soon.